Hi, guys. Oh, my God, it's Ugly Bob. What the hell are you doing here?
This is going to be part 12 of my 26-part review. I'm always overestimating or underestimating the names of games, so just bear with me for now. Anyway, this is going to be focusing on the second advent of handheld Castlevania, Circle of the Moon. History. This game was first released in June 2001, right as the new line of handheld awesomeness came out, the Game Boy Advance. I actually was more excited for this game than anything else, despite the Game Boy Advance having quite a strong library of launch titles. Super Mario Advance not included, because there was nothing advanced about a slightly enhanced version of Super Mario Bros. 2, and we all know the story behind that game. It was great because this really was the first one where we realized, yeah, it's good. It's been a few years since a 2D Castlevania, besides those dubiously received 3D Castlevania games on the N64, which we'll review later. It's been a few years since we've seen a 2D game, so we didn't know if Symphony of the Night was going to be an experiment or if this was the way things were going to be. And thankfully, that's the way things were going to be. We had a Castleroid or Metroidvania style of gameplay, and I couldn't have been happier. As this game moves on, you realize that it's not really has anything to do with the Castlevania story, which could have led to it being removed from the official Castlevania timeline in 2003, because none of the characters who appear in this game, be it the protagonist Nathan Graves or the father-son team of Hugh Baldwin and Morris Baldwin, they don't seem to have a relation to any of the characters in any of the other games. They're just another family who dubiously possess an item called the Hunter Whip, who also seem to be able to defeat Dracula for some reason. Oh, and they're quite good at being Pokemon masters, apparently. Just kidding. Meaning that Nathan is quite adept at using card combinations and stuff to wreak havoc on enemies. Anyway, the story continues that Dracula has been revived yet again, except unlike the even more ambiguous method used in Rondo of Blood, which involved the sacrifice of virgins, he just seems to magically reappear at the beginning of the game, no less, when Camilla, one of his minions, just chants some words saying, "We want Dracula back," and boom, he's back. I wonder if that would work for other important historical figures. You need some dark magic. Dark magic always seems to work like that. It's very handy stuff. Moving on. Let's see. As I said about the card system, it really adds a unique element to this game, being that if they were trying to base it off something else, I'm not sure what it is. Maybe like I even joked about Pokemon. But whatever, this game does have a unique system among all Castlevania games. I guess you could say that Curse of Darkness maybe used the system later based on it, you know, the Pokemon overtones, but the way this game basically works is you have one card for each element, and then when you combine it with another card representing a planet or an animal, I believe. It's hard to explain, but it's basically 20 of each, 10 on each row. Anyway, you combine them and they'll do some familiar attacks. Like one of the most powerful ones is the summoning one, where all of them, at least most of them, will cover the entire screen with enemies at the cost. Will cover the entire screen, damaging everything at the cost of some high MP. So it's really your choice if you want to use like lots of little MP attacks or some stronger ones. It follows the same basic system as Symphony of the Night. You got your hearts for sub-weapons, MP for the card combos like I mentioned, and life meter. I really wish they had used the number system, because sometimes that little red bar that they used in that they would use up until Area of Sorrow, you might not see when that last hit is going to kill you, as opposed to like the number 10 or 5 life left. Just a personal opinion. Anyway, The graphics in this game, you really have to comment on this twofold, because they were not really designed with the Game Boy Advance in mind. They're very dark, and that was one of the more notorious things about it being a Game Boy launch game. I tried it on an emulator for this very reason at first, and I didn't actually play it on an actual unit until the Game Boy Advance SP came out, thank God. But I remember seeing a friend who had original Game Boy Advance, and you couldn't see anything on it. It was really difficult. You had to, it reminds me of the old Game Boy days. You had to, hold it just right to be able to see anything. And I hadn't done that since Super Mario Land, and I wasn't pleased to be doing it again. So I can definitely feel the pain of others who had to wait 2 more years before the Game Boy Advance SP came out. Beyond that obvious, the graphics not being bright enough, they're not particularly detailed in this game. The animations are kind of jerky, maybe because they allowed Nathan to run as opposed to dashing or shadow-based moving like in other games. The enemies don't have very much animation, and this could have been just maybe think back to 1990 with the Castlevania Adventure. It was the first game. They were still testing out the hardware. They didn't know what they could do, because as we'll talk about in our next review, there was quite a leap in graphics, so you can't really fault it. I guess you could say it looked about as good as a Super Nintendo game right around 92. At least the frame rate was pretty consistent. You could definitely give that a positive. Maybe, in fact, that's what they were going for. Music. They definitely were using the Game Boy Advance in very well musically, because it, again, doesn't sound better than the Super Nintendo. It's portable in that regard, which was a criticism of the system early on, but they were able to reproduce classic Castlevania tunes, and people were willing to overlook some of this minor fault, considering all the other things that the Game Boy Advance could do and how good the games were. It is my opinion that there are, much like NES games, there are very few Game Boy Advance games that have good music, simply an inferior sound chip, but some are able to get it done. The challenge in this game is a lot like Symphony of the Night. If you exploit a lot of the glitches in the game, or even the more powerful card combinations, which just involve farming the right enemies over and over again, this game can be extremely easy. But if you don't know about the best card combinations, like Thunderbird, you could have a harder time on this game, because you only have your whip and maybe some of your sub-weapons to rely on. Enemies are weak to certain things, but like I said about the Thunderbird, they will overpower other things, so really, like Symphony of the Night, the challenge of this game is what you make it. And I guess that would depend on your mood. For instance, the last time I played the game, I just wanted to get through with it for the purposes of this review, so I use Thunderbird all the time. Quite easy in that regard. The Dracula at the end of this game is pretty difficult, unless you use Thunderbird again, because he has some attacks that make him difficult to hit, and can hit you from pretty much anywhere. The problem with this is, he could do this in past Castlevania games too, but they didn't do nearly as much damage as they do in this game. And you really have to use your high jump to be able to avoid it well. It's also an interesting environment where you fight him. Fun factor. I feel the need to comment on another review of this. GameStop, well before they were discredited, they gave this game a 9.6 out of 10. I know you shouldn't compare other reviews, but they're kind of like saying it's as good as Resident Evil 4, and about 0.7 points better than Symphony of the Night. No way. This game was fun, but it's no way anywhere close to Symphony of the Night or even the other Game Boy Advance Castlevanias. Maybe it was just simply like, wow, look at this on this type of screen and at this time, so maybe they were biased. Me, I'm trying not to be biased on this review anyway. It's a fun little game with lots of different ways to play it. You can always, like I said, make the game as hard or as easy as you want it to be, so there's a lot of replay. And speaking of replay, this game by far has the most replay of any Castlevania. When you beat the game, you'll unlock another mode called Magician Mode, where you have access to all the cards and combinations at the beginning of the game. And you'll have a lot more MP, but you'll also suffer a lot less attack power, life, defense X, and then so on and so forth. You also get modes for enhanced luck, enhanced attack, enhanced attack power, and there's one more. And enemies will drop stuff more. Enemies will drop stuff very often because you'll have like the 99 luck code from Symphony Night. There's lots of different ways to play the game, and it's interesting that they went the extra mile. I don't think there's really anything else to say about this game, and so I'll see you next time for my review of Harmony of Dissonance. See you then, guys.